All right, looks like we're in business. You're live on YouTube.
All right. Well, thanks for joining everybody today. I guess our December Public Works meeting, I'll go ahead and call to order. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the August meeting before we get started?
I'll move. I mean, it's going to be tough to approve. It was almost 6 months ago, so I don't even remember what we discussed. So I'll make a motion that we approve those minutes, even though our memories might not be accurate.
Second.
Okay, looks like the minutes are approved. All right, so let's see. For old business, an update on the Parkway. So you're right. I mean, to Mr. Stefano's point, it's kind of tricky to pick up where we left off on everything, but I guess I'll just go ahead and the update, some of the things that I think that have been done since our last meeting. The ponding issue seems to have been taken care of. What they did is banks came in, they milled out a section, regraded, and threw some pavement on there. We've had a couple of significant rains since they've done that work, and it looks like, you know, we're getting 95% of that water is moving out of there pretty quickly. So I don't know if any of you guys have seen it after a rain and have any concerns or anything. For me, it seems like it's working pretty well.
I saw it. I saw it, and the pond is a lot smaller now.
Yeah, agreed.
I would say that all that money we spent, we had a pond, now we have a puddle. It looks just as bad as a puddle as it did as a pond. It's a mistake. Whether or not the resort's willing to live with it until they plan on doing something, which could be 5 years from now, who knows, whenever. I don't think it's acceptable. It's just a brand new road, and every time I drive by after any kind of rain, and it's at least lasts for 2 or 3 days, that puddle's there and there's leaves in it, and it just looks bad. And you know, and the stripe that's there, the new pavement, nobody really drives over it, so you're going to have that different color for a long time because there's no traffic that goes over. It's going to wear it down. I just think that, in my opinion, it's not good enough. Whether the resort likes it or not, it just should look perfect. And if it requires a drain in there, maybe it does. But my opinion is it's still got to be fixed. If you know.
So is that something that we want to discuss with the parties after this meeting? Bring that up and see if the resort has any feedback on that.
We're a committee. We can only advise. I don't know how the others feel about that. I'd like to hear from everybody what they think about that particular issue. But we can only advise, and I think it's up to the mayor and Stephanie and the town council whether to spend money to fix that or come to some other resolution, depending on whose responsibility it is.
I'll second that. That is a piece of junk. If the town of Kiowa cannot do a more professional job than that, they ought to get out of the business, period. That is terrible. It started with no design, period.
I agree. It needs to be fixed.
And hey, if I was a resort, I wouldn't pay you one dime for that area.
Well, the resort didn't pay for it. The county paid for it.
Right.
The resort's position is, in the long run, when they develop that area, they're not sure they're going to not relocate those things. So if they basically said it's not a problem for us, we're not going to insist on it. I understand that, but you know, we're the Public Works Committee, and you know, we can advise, and I think we got three or four people here saying it looks terrible.
It does. It's not professional. It doesn't rate Kiowa. Period.
And I've had people comment to me that know nothing about the Public Works Committee, but they They know, I'm on it, and they drive by and they say, what is that? It's a mess. I mean,
So,
oh,
so speaking to those points as well, Mr. DeStefano, as you brought up, we've got that seam and it's going to kind of hang tight because there's not a whole lot of traffic going on and off that section through that turn lane. My fear is that, I'm not saying nothing should be done, but my fear is that if we went and did something on top of what's been done now, that we're still going to have the same issue, that there's not a whole lot of traffic on it, so it's not getting molded in. I think we're still going to see that separation of this work was obviously done months after the road was completed.
well, I agree with you on that issue. However, if you're going to redo it, you take the road line itself, call that a demarcation point, and you mill the whole thing down so that the whole ramp is repaved, not something that's 3 feet wide. That's just not the way to fix that, whether it works or not.
The engineer's got to go back and relook at it and redesign it and come up with a proper design for that area, period.
And if it needs a drain, a small drain, well, put it
That's
in.
okay.
But and when you patch it, you patch the whole thing. You just kind of, even if you shortcut, but you pick the main line of the road and you mill it to that point, so at least it looks like one big patch, as opposed to, the problems we had at Keel Island Parkway many years ago, where they did all that patching with a 3-foot piece here, a 2-foot piece there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was hell to pay for that. That's when they decided to just repave the whole road. A brand new road like that, you just don't patch it that way. It's just a contractor trying to get out of there and get his money.
Okay. Great point.
My other
Yeah,
comment.
I'll chime in. I'll chime in if I can.
Please.
The problem was identified before they worked on it again, and we warned them that we advised that any type of a patch would stand out. It wouldn't look like it was the original road paving, and I think probably it was a money issue. I don't like to speak for the town, but in order to try to justify, there were several options to fix it, and I think the town, probably due to budget issues, went with the one they did. It wasn't a fix. It was they didn't fix it. They still have the problem, as we have suggested. They just patched it, and so it's a patch job. As a patch job, if that's what we wanted, it's okay, but it's not a fix.
Okay, so it sounds like everyone is kind of on that same page. Ryan, do you have anything you want to throw in there?
Yeah, everybody said some really good points. Mr. DeStefano is right. There was a better way to patch it if that's what you're going to do. From my perspective, from the engineering perspective, long term, anywhere you're holding water is just going to cause further damage to the asphalt. So right now it's a small puddle. Standing water on asphalt is not a good thing long term. Even if you don't address it now, you will end up addressing it in the future, whether you want to or not.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
And one other comment I have about the paving is that originally the scope of work was, and I distinctly remember this, that all of the finished paving was going, in other words, all of the finished paving was going to be done at once. That everything else was going to be done. They were going to finish pave the whole road. And they changed that sequence where they did the finished paving for the main road and then came back in and put the other extensions on. And it turned out okay. It's acceptable to me, but it just visually for a period of time just didn't look good. Even today, when you're driving on that road, when you're outbound, that extreme right-hand lane is completely different than the other paving. And I don't think it's just how much it's been worn. It just looks different. And that seam, inbound after you go by Cassique, that seam that we've discussed many times, it's still the same. Nobody's done anything with it.
Okay, let me jot that down too. That cold seam that doesn't quite line up with the center line, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, It's got a lineup problem and it's just not a really good seam. I mean, I understand what happened there, but this was discussed right after they paved that. How long ago was that? 7, 8, 9 months ago. And, oh yeah, we'll take a look at that and we'll take care of it. And the contractor said that, and nothing's been done. Of course, we haven't had enough meetings where we get the opportunity to launch our tirade, if you know what I mean. But
Right.
I don't know if anything can be done with it. I think structurally it's probably fine. It just looks bad.
Okay. All right. Well, any other comments on the Parkway project? Are there any other areas, any other concern? Oh, another thing another issue that has been addressed is the bike path. We had some excess slope areas on the bike path that were exceeding that tolerance of 2.5%. So banks did come in and flatten out all those sections of the bike path that exceeded grade. So the whole entire bike path right now, for the most part, everything's at about 1%, getting up to, but not past like 2.5%, I believe. So I know that was a big topic in one of our last meetings, but that should be mitigated by now.
I think the proper word, like you just said, it's mitigated. I don't think it's ideal. I know they're not going to go forward and do anything about it, so the fix is the fix. I think that's a done deal. My only other comment on the project overall is it looks like all that geogrid we put in works, because I don't see any more ruts anywhere.
Yeah, good. Always good to point out the positives. Yes, I think
I'll go both ways. I'll do the negative and the positive.
Yeah, well, it's good. It's good. We got to have that. Right, the geogrid so far, and I mean, traffic hasn't gotten any lighter on the island. So I think, and I mean, we all know, we saw there was some ruts. That one just past Freshfields was probably like an 8 to 12 inch rut that ran for about 20 feet. And yeah, haven't seen any of the same issues. And again, too, right? So the Parkway still does look like it's under construction because of the landscape portion of that work, which we'll get to here in a minute. But yeah, I think once it gets dressed up, then I think we're going to be a lot more pleased with the end result. But not to say that these aren't good issues that we need to bring up and see if there's anything that can be done about them at this point.
One question I have, just out of curiosity, the worst paving job I've ever seen is what they did in front of Town Hall, and it looks like they did 3 lanes and left. Do you have any idea what they're doing out there? Because I mean, that thing's got to be milled down and repaved. That's the worst piece of crap I've seen. It
is. So as far as I've gotten, it's been a journey getting information about what they're doing. So the state. All right, here's my understanding. The side that got paved, that is owned by the state.
Right.
The outbound side is owned by the county, and they obviously didn't discuss their plans to maybe line up paving this, all together. So we've got a good finished product. We've been in touch with the county, who we actually brought it to their attention that the state was doing this work. And now that they know, we sent some pictures. We said, hey, it looks really bad. It's you're coming in and out of Town Hall. You've got this 2-inch lip that you're going over. Can we get something done about it? So that's in their public works department right now. Stephanie and I have been in discussion with some people from the state and the county to try to get that, because I know the PGA is not going to be cool with the road looking like that when they come here in a few months. So
not only I understand that state county thing and when one's going to do, but what was actually paved is unacceptable. I mean, it's terrible. I don't think that was actually a state crew. I don't think they knew what they were doing.
There's definitely some areas that look like they didn't get rolled properly. There's maybe, like the surface compaction doesn't look like it's really there. Yeah, they were in SCDOT trucks and stuff, but I don't know if there was any other subs that were out there doing that work. Yeah, but again, hopefully at least when they pave the other side, it'll tighten it up and look a little bit better.
Does the town have any written, in writing conversations that you're having with Charleston? In writing?
Yes.
You have them
Yes.
in writing?
There has been some email correspondence. There's been nothing determined, right? No, they haven't said we're going to come out on this date and do this, but there has been there's a paper trail.
There is a paper
some
trail.
Conversations.
And so has the town made a claim that it's an unsafe situation out there?
Yes.
In writing?
Yes.
And in Charleston County's ignoring it?
No, they're not ignoring it. They were unaware. They were unaware that the state was doing the work. We brought it to their attention with our claims. So they have to come up with a plan now.
When?
We don't know.
Well, ask them.
Yeah, well, we're
Too
waiting
long.
on them to.
I think they were on top of it, Warren. Let them.
Well,
let them get it done. Trying to get the county to do anything is not the easiest thing in the world.
I want to go back one really quick, like to the bike path.
Yeah.
There are some purple, I believe they're purple, flagging along the edge of the bike path. What do they represent?
I don't know for sure. A couple of guesses off the top of my head would be valve locations for the irrigation.
No, this is right on the edge of the bike path.
On the inside or outside?
Irrigation spraying away from the path.
Excuse me?
It's probably irrigation spraying away from the path, just like it is all over the island.
Okay, it very well could be, but it's on the very steep slope.
I'll go take a look at it. It's on the section of bike path that got redone.
Yeah. I
Okay.
know, it's all lined out with purple flags. I'm just kind of curious.
I'll go take a look.
Now, are these going to?
Kika uses purple flags to mark irrigation, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
I have a question about the bike path.
Yes, sir.
Are the landscapers going to put some kind of robust landscaping in on that sloped area between the bike path and the turn lane?
Yes, we are going to be putting at minimum a heavier vegetative buffer. I am getting some guidelines together from the design team from McCormick Taylor. They're getting me the ASHTO regulations for structures. So we're interested in putting a little fence structure that looks similar to what we have up close to the bridge. You've got, what are they, like 8x8s with the cable that will eventually get decorated with vegetation. So you won't even really see the fence, but it'll be there. So those are kind of our plan A's and plan B's.
Next to the bike path?
Yes.
That's go right next to the bike path? You only have an 8-foot bike path there. You can't put a fence up there.
Why not?
What are you going to do with people trying to pass each other? You haven't got enough room.
First of all, I measured it. It's actually 9 feet, and you just put the fence or the barrier. You don't put it right on the edge of the bike path.
It's gonna be in the middle of the buffer, in the middle of that buffer zone, like 2 feet off of the bike path.
And the thing is that's usually where when you're in a situation like that, you have to put it. You should have at least a 2-foot buffer. And the maximum of the 2-foot buffer maximum slope is 17% up or down. I don't know what it's going to be there. But the thing is with the fence, you got to make sure if somebody slips off the edge and they go into the fence, you got to make, the problem is, you know, is the handlebars, is the pedals, is anything going to get stuck on the fence? Because, you know, if you got anything that's vertical, it's going to snag something. You got to make sure that it's, you know, it's going to do its job and prevent it from falling into the road, but not getting hurt by the barrier.
Right.
I mean, it would be ideal if the fence allowed you to fill in that buffer zone to where it was pretty much taking the slope of the bike path.
That'd be too good.
Anyhow,
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear about the fence. And the other question, I have a question about who paid for the mitigation of that pond that we've been talking about, or was it paid for by the contractor as part of his original contract, or was it an add-on that we paid for?
No, there was no, that wasn't a change order. That was Banks made the mistake and they did that on their own dime.
Okay.
No, they did it on their own penny. They didn't do it on their own dime. They did it on their own penny.
On their own penny. On their own penny, of course. Yeah, so there wasn't an exchange of money for that one from us.
Okay, on
Who
the,
is
go ahead.
who is moderating the meeting? Is it Brian?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's excuse me. I just wanted to be sure.
Oh, no problem. Mr. Standard?
Where do we stand as far as the billings on this parkway? Are we going to get a printout? Let us know what's going on, or are we privy to that?
I could get you that information. That Dorota is the one that has that. I can let you know. I can shoot you an email and let you know where we are, and to anyone else who's interested.
Know some of the change orders that were done, plus or minuses.
Right. Yeah, I can get all that information for you. That's been between Stephanie and Dorota. They've been, and the design team have been reviewing the pay applications.
So as far as we're concerned, this project is still alive.
Perhaps.
To phrase it another way, they have not been paid 100% of their contract. Is that accurate?
Yeah, something like that.
Right. I don't know the answer to that. I know we had, what was it, like a $170,000 retainer.
Yep.
I don't know 100% if they have been paid 100%, but I can find that out for you guys.
Because if they've been paid 100%, you're never going to get them to come back and fix that thing.
Yes,
Right.
you're right.
Right.
That's my gist.
Anything else on the road? All right. So landscaping, I've got an update for you guys. Where we are now, I'm sure you've seen them on the side of the road. We've done some of that. Well, all of the demo work that we're going to do has been completed, and hopefully you guys are as pleased as I am with some of the view windows that have been opened up, specifically inbound right before the bridge on the left-hand side. They knocked down a bunch of trees. We've got a really great view of the marsh there. And then just kind of cleaned out a lot of the overgrown stuff along the land bridge by Cacique, and even up before that. Just bend it all out so you can kind of see, looks a little bit more natural.
I agree that the clearing out of that stuff was a big improvement, and I'm just waiting for the landscaping. My only comment, and I mentioned this to Mayor Weaver, was, you know, that grass that kind of overhangs the bike paths, and it creeps in, and like the 8-foot bike path is effectively 6 feet now because the grass kind of leans and grows over the bike path.
Mhm.
And I'm just hoping that the new landscaping takes into consideration that we don't put vegetation in it. It's going to do the same thing and just grow right over the bike path and narrow it down. And the mayor said at the time that they did take that into consideration. It shouldn't be a problem going forward. That was my only concern with the landscaping.
Yeah, and speaking to that too, we are eliminating a significant amount of sod on the parkway. So there's going to be a lot more ornamental grasses and trees and stuff that just frankly looks prettier. And then taking out all that sod is going to cut down on maintenance. You know, you don't have to, no sod, no mowing, right? And then there's going to be a lot more drip irrigation, so not as many sprinkler heads. So I think we're going to see some cost cut in that area too. But anyway, yeah, nothing's changed with the plans for the design for the landscaping since you talked to Mayor Weaver. They're continuing to work through the irrigation right now. Apparently there were a lot of irrigation issues that have come to the surface since they've really gotten in there and dug around and tested the valves and pumps and everything. But they're continuing to work through that. As of right now, the plan is all the irrigation and all of the trees are going to be behind us in December. All that's going to be done. Let me back up. So because of that, the irrigation work per the contractor, there's a lot of irrigation work that needed to be done. We had some wet days, a couple holidays. We got pushed back a little bit. The original end date was going to be December 23. Right now we're looking at an end date of the first week of February. They'll be out of here. So that's going to be, all of the trees are going to be in place at the end of this month. And then starting the new year, we're going to have maybe 40,000 plants, you know, ornamental grasses, pollinators, stuff like that to put into the ground. He has, in an email, told us that he will be dedicated to upping the size of his crew and working Saturdays at their expense to make sure that we can close this project out first week of February. So that's where we are with the landscaping so far.
Brian,
Yes, sir.
is this an ideal time of year to be planting all of these plants?
I believe for the most part, this really ideal for the trees to be planted in this time. And, you know, I think the only tricky thing is for like the perennials and the ornamental grasses is you're just kind of putting dirt in the ground, and you got to keep your fingers crossed that they were labeled right, because you can't, you know, there's nothing there to tell you what it actually is. And if someone else knows, is a landscape expert here, please, by all means, but I don't think that it's a big issue to be planting this time of year.
Okay.
Brian, I have one question. The sign when you get to the first gate, the Kiowa Island sign,
Yes, sir.
that is a town sign.
Correct.
And everybody, I guess, everybody's updating their signage. And on that particular sign, I know Kika got a quote to put in a new sign that it was ridiculous. It was like $26,000. They were going to yank the whole thing out, put a new sign in. And I guess the new method now is have like offset metal letters on the sign as opposed to, you know, carved in letters, something along those lines. And I looked at that sign, I get close to it. I think all you have to do to that sign, and hopefully you'll agree with me, is unbolt the main horizontal beams, flip them over because they're not carved on the other side, probably repaint them, get the updated color, fix it up, and then just put the metal standoff sign on top of that, rather than, I don't think you need a whole new structure just because you want to upgrade that sign. And it should have some lighting, because you come in at night, you can't even see it. And, you know, for the PGA, everybody else is updating the signs. And I think that's something that I don't think is going to be too bad if you just kind of flip those two beams over and just add the letters to it afterwards.
So you're saying basically we just need to design a face to put on top of the existing almost?
Yeah, and my understanding of the design that $25,000 sign. The new thing is that it was going to be like, it was going to be metal letters, you know, the same script, but they were going to be like bolted on, so they'd be like a stand off an inch or two from the wood.
Oh,
You know what I
okay.
mean?
I see what you're saying. So speaking to that, I know it was maybe even close to a year ago, Stephanie Braswell was on, you know, doing some preliminary investigation about that sign in particular, I think.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
She sent it to the town.
Okay, yeah. Then I'm sure they came to the same halt that you did when they saw the price and said, let's revisit this later. But you know, that's not a bad idea. If that's something that can get done before the tournament, why not? So I'm gonna jot that down too.
And Brian, go out there and take a look at it to make sure my theory of you could just unbolt it and flip them is okay before you get into it too far.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, right, yeah, I'll have to go in and see exactly kind of how it's constructed. Ryan, so Kika did y'all investigate new signs or?
Well, you've probably seen across the island, I mean, we've been integrating new signage package into our street signs, our stop signs, speed limit signs. That was all part of an overall sign package, I believe, that was developed. Now, the sign at the main gate, I'm not as familiar with that particular design. I do know that the ARB was heavily involved in the approval of sign package. So while I agree with Dave that, you know, there's probably some modifications to be made from, you know, what could be used, there are some issues that are probably out of our hands that need to be discussed with some other people that are more into the aesthetics of it. I mean, I'm all about the path of least resistance. I mean, if we don't need to spend $25,000, why spend it? But
right.
I believe what was developed was part of the overall package that was approved and went through the review process. So,
one of the new signs installed near my house, I guess the new signs are the road signs are some kind of a tape put over top of the metal, and one of the letters has already had the tape missing on it. Just FYI.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we get phone calls every day about signs breaking, and these tend to be a lot more fragile than the standard wood signs that we've had up to this point. So.
Yeah, what are those made out of, and how thick are they?
Oh, they're metal, and they're probably a 1/4 inch thick, and they're literally held on by 2 bolts at the post. So it takes literally somebody on a bicycle hitting it and it snaps off.
Yeah.
We have a whole list of road signs right now that, you know, they're on order because they've broken off the post.
And I imagine that just like everything else today, road signs are on back order as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. That's something to look into for sure. Any other questions about landscaping, or kind of, you know, we're still following the same sequence. You know, the roundabout is going to be the last place to get touched. And then again, I think the first thing that's going to get done after the irrigation, we're going to put in the palms and the other trees that are going in. I think the biggest part of that, we're going to be the palms that are going in to shield Little Rabbit. I think that's going to be a good touch and kind of keep that privacy between Little Rabbit. Just so you're not coming over the bridge or coming around Mingo and looking right into all that building. Kind of have some palm tree buffer there. Should look pretty good. But yeah, that's kind of, those are the updates that I have. And if there's nothing else, then I'll just open up for any comments that anyone has about future stuff.
I have an, go ahead. I have stuff. What is the town planning for the community to do for the next year?
What was that again?
Does the town have any plans for the Public Works Committee to look at anything? Or are we just,
There hasn't been a formal discussion about that, but off the top of my head, there are a couple of projects that I would like to start in the next year, and hopefully have y'all's input. One of them is some landscaping, almost redesigning the landscaping up here at Town Hall. We've got drainage issues up here. We've got bad landscaping up here, there's kind of been a little bit of discussion. Money wasn't there for us this year, but that's something that I want to jump on. And then next, after all of this work is done, we're going to be having to look and see what issues we see with any of the designs. Are the swales working they need the way that they need to? Are we having these overgrown issues on the parkway that maybe we need to revisit some of the things that we planted there? So there are things for the committee to meet about, just no big capital projects like the road one that we've done.
what about a right turn lane at Beachwalker?
A right turn lane at Beachwalker. That's an idea. Has there ever been discussion about that?
Yeah, well, you mentioned
That-
when we were in the
That
photo.
involves buying, that you're gonna have to condemn land to do that. And I don't know if the partners are gonna go for that.
Well, I'm just saying it's something that should be looked at. I mean, we can't sit here doing nothing. It's like the curve. The main curve, we gotta look at seawater rise. That takes
Yeah.
years to do. Might get started on that.
I mean, there is already a huge committee, task force, whatever you want to call it, that's working with the town and Kika together on sea level rise. The resort's involved, the partners are involved, so that's a whole committee that's right on top of that. And
Warren, if you're interested, so I know Kathy Pumphrey and
Send me their
Lucas.
names when you get a chance.
well,
Yeah,
if you go on the town's website and get into it, because the whole 62-page report on what they call the adaptive management plan, which relates directly to sea level rise and what's going to be done about it, et cetera, including the $2.9 million project that's underway, et cetera. There's a 62-page document there. I know it's on the town's website about where they are with this, and they do a pretty thorough job. That's one area that is not being ignored. Trust me, the people on that committee are at it all the time.
And this is the town.
It's the town and Kika, like Kika's employee, Lucas, who they
Lucas
hired. He's
Hernandez.
kind of running the whole show. He's the lead guy there, and he's sharp as a tack, and he's on top of it. So you get into that report, and if you want to learn anything about it, just call Lucas directly at Kika. You'll be very impressed.
Well, I know he's working on it. I've talked to him, but nobody is looking at preparing plans or solutions to it.
I think right now we're really trying to get an understanding of the impacts. And unfortunately, it takes time because sea level rise doesn't happen overnight. But then speaking to what Mr. DeStefano, that document, there's stuff in there about the marsh accretion on the beach and in the marsh, what the water's doing, where land's coming from. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there.
And the whole concept of the adaptive management plan is you can't plan very far up because you've got to, as you get more info and you learn more, you got to change the plan. Right now, with that $2.9 million project that's going to be done, well, they're going to stop for a while during the PGA and start up again. That's going to help in getting water off the island faster, which is the main goal right now with that project. So the adaptive management plan is kind of, all right, we got to see if that works. And if it works, what's next? If it doesn't work, what's next? Because we can't stop the flooding. We can't stop sea level rise. The water's going to come on the island. Nothing we can do about that. It's how fast can we get rid of it? Because the faster we can get rid of it, it affects the plants that are going to grow. You know, the water table underneath is getting affected by it. I mean, they're looking at every aspect of that and coming up with the plan on how to plan. That's what the adaptive management plan is. Well, I think adaptive management is redundant. I think management is supposed to adapt, but that's a whole other. I stay away from that.
So they're going to come to the town and tell us what we have to do.
No, they're not. That whole group is going to come up with what do we do next? What can we do next? What's it going to cost? Okay, it might be we're not going to do anything for 5 years. It might be, oh my God, we got to have a special segment. We need a special assessment of $10 million to get this done. So that's what they mean by adaptive management. You can't say what you're going to do 5 years from now because you don't know. You don't know what the changes are going to be. So they have what they call threshold issues. Certain things are going to happen on certain dates. When that threshold happens, then they can make a decision on what do we do next. Okay, that's the whole thing, because you just can't say, well, in 20 years we're going to have an extra 1.5 feet of water. What are we going to do about it? We don't know.
You're going to have an inch in 20 years.
But I agree with you on that one, Warren. But let's not go there.
I think what is coming, you know, we're talking about sea level rise. Well, and what we should have done with the road at this point is we've had a couple of big tides, and that road over there at Mingo seems to have kept dry. So I think we're off to a good start with the road. I know that was a big, you know, that took us 3 months to figure out how much, if any, we need to raise the road up. So I think we're off to a good start.
And I recall that, you know, to raise the whole road up and to keep it open for everybody all the time was going to be a ridiculous number.
Mm-hmm.
And ironically, it would have been the only dry place within 100 miles of here. Because
Right.
Betsy Kerrison, you won't be able to get through it. The island's going to be flooded. So, you know, as long as we can get the emergency vehicles through in the Mingo Point curve, you know, in the worst case scenario, the island's supposed to be evacuated, and everybody agreed that the emergency vehicles will be able to get through in the worst conditions. So we didn't raise the road.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
20 years from now, we might be raising the road 2 feet. You don't know.
Is the town and Kika looking at anything to improve traffic flow at the front gate?
That's a Kika issue.
It's our issue too. We got the stop sign there.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, they do work together, Warren. Yes, they're addressing the whole front gate issue and traffic flow. They put that new white striping out there that Stantec designed, and it's a disaster. It didn't work. I don't know what they were thinking. Traffic when you're coming out of Cougar and somebody's turning in, they got to crisscross. There's going to be a head-on collision there any day now. I know there is. That's got to be fixed. Are they going to put a rotary there eventually? We don't know yet, because we haven't seen the Timbers traffic flow yet, and we haven't seen the new hotels traffic flow yet. So I don't think anything drastic is going to be done out there until we get that flow. My understanding is they're trying to widen a section of that, so when these trucks pull off,
We are.
block one lane.
They're doing a good job at that.
There's not a lot of real estate there. They got to go take it out of the center island. They can't go right. And,
If you can.
well,
I wonder if there would be a value in our Public Works Committee coming up with a position paper on the Johns Island corridor widening project.
I think that'd be very valuable. I mean, go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, is everybody familiar with that? They've got like at least 3 options to widen.
Issue.
Yeah, there's
Pardon me?
the plans for that. You can find it in the town notes, or one of the last e-blasts. There was a link to go check it. It's called the main road corridor. And we don't have to get into it right now, but Mr. Gillum, I think that if that's something that the Public Works Committee was interested in doing, I mean, you know, Kiewad, Seabrook they're gonna be impacted the most by by this project. So I think the opinions of the communities of these sea islands are very valuable.
I think a lot of people are looking for guidance and recommendations from people in the know. And being a civil engineering oriented firm with engineering backgrounds, I think maybe that would be a worthwhile effort for us. Maybe we need to put it to vote or just think about it, have the next meeting, discuss it, whatever you think, David and Brian.
Well, one of the things is that all of these different options, the decision on which option to take is purely political at this point in time. And it's not an engineering issue. It's not a technical issue. It's, you know, I don't want a road down the middle of the island. I don't want this. I don't want that. You can't cut the trees down, et cetera. So it's really a political issue at this point. And the more people that weigh in individually in as an organization, I think it's worthwhile to weigh in. But I don't know if we're going to, on our committee, if we're going to have consensus on what recommendation we think is best. You know, I don't know if you've been following the paper the other day, but, you know, effectively 526 is dead. It's never going to happen. So I don't know how that impacts this decision of what to do. But
so are you suggesting that maybe our committee wait until they've decided which option and then weigh in on the option?
No, I think the committee can do our own research to look at those options online, obviously, and we can discuss it to find out, are we in agreement as to what the best option is from our perspective, okay? Now, if we've got, you know, 4 or 5 members on a committee and 2 think option 1's good and 2 think option 2's good and somebody thinks option 3's good, I don't know how do we respond? How do we put our 2 cents in?
Yeah.
But you know, I think it's worthwhile looking at it. So, and we're advisory. You know, the mayor and the town council are going to be, quote, the official responders for the town government anyway. So I don't know if we should be advising the town council of what we think, or if we should. I don't think the committee should be directly going out to the public with our opinion, because it could contradict with the town's official position.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well,
I think. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Mr. Gillum.
Instead of looking for a consensus from the Public Works Committee, maybe we could do a pros and cons of each option.
Yeah, I think definitely a good place to start, you know, because then at that point we could have a discussion within our committee and maybe that'll help be a little bit more more decisive on what the best option, what we feel would be the best option. But Mr. DeStefano is right. I think if we worked on putting together a position paper, as you put it, Mr. Gillum, to kind of present to the mayor and council, because I know this is a big topic for them. They've already had a couple meetings, and we've had a new mayor and council for 2 weeks. You know, and this is a big issue. So I think for us to be informed and to do what we can to put in our input is really important.
I agree. So effectively, everybody here on the committee, get online, look at all the options, come up with your pros and cons so that we can get together and discuss it and see if we're in agreement on most things or disagreement, et cetera. But again, my understanding of the pros and cons here are all political. They're not technical.
Well, and what I'll do too, for anyone that hasn't seen it or doesn't necessarily know where to look, I'll forward the email. I think it was a town notes that our communications department sent out that had a link to all the plans it runs through. I think there's 5 options that they're looking at right now. I'll send that link out to everybody so that we're looking at the same thing, getting the same information. I'll do that right after this meeting.
Yeah, that'd be very helpful.
So Warren, there's something that we can work on after this landscaping's done. That gives us like at least 5 years.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay, well, I think we'll defer back to you, Warren, if you've got anything else, any other comments. I know you were running through a list there.
Well, no, I just was bringing different things that I think the town may take a look at, and, you know, like the main roadways coming into the island are good, and there's a lot of other little things we should look at because they take years to do.
And that's a really great point. I think, you know, speaking to that, I think that there will be plenty of opportunity for us to continue to meet on different. And I mean, you know, I know Public Works for the town hasn't been a department for very long, and up, you know, through now it's been only because there's been a couple of big projects that we've been doing. But I think this is a really good opportunity as a committee to really take a look at the infrastructure and the public rights of ways, and what can we do from a public standpoint, a public works standpoint, to really kind of help, like you were saying, the flow of traffic on and off the island, maybe the Beachwalker intersection. How do we make this landscape? You know, there's a lot of things that we can really look into. It doesn't have to just be a capital project.
Well, when Rusty was here, he mentioned Beachwalker Drive needed some drainage.
Let's take a look at it.
I think they did some out there.
Yeah, they did some.
No, the developer, because of that future development in there, they did work just about a year ago that Kika just accepted the conveyance of the piping under the road. There's a 24-inch pipe they installed to effectively, if you're driving in, all the property to the left was flooding, so they installed the new drainage to get it to the river to help dry that area out. So I'm sure it probably needs more, Warren, because I think just about everything on the island needs more embedded drainage.
I'm just saying, look at it. That's all I'm saying. Possibly.
I think that's definitely always worth looking at, is drainage on any road on this island.
Absolutely. Great. Any other comments from the committee?
No, I think we.
When's the next meeting?
The next scheduled meeting, I guess, will be January, second Monday in January. That looks like the 11th.
In person, town hall.
In person is always our goal. But you know, if there's people that can't do that or aren't comfortable doing that, we've got to respect it. You know, or you know, if there's somebody that doesn't want to, but everyone else is okay with it, maybe we could Zoom or call them in. I agree. I like in-person meetings, but we're in a different time right now, so that can be our goal.
Yeah.
That can be our goal. But Petra will, you know, she's really good about sending out those reminders ahead of time, so we can plan on. Well, we'll definitely have some landscape updates for January, so we'll plan on meeting again then.
Done.
Okay.
And in the meantime, you know, y'all are always free to call or email me with any questions, whether we can talk about them now or if it's just what we want to talk about at the next meeting. Always feel free to do that. So with no other comments, we can have this meeting adjourned.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you very much. Everybody stay healthy.